What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. It's a wild one here already. A lot of controversy here going on already. We'll start at the top here with this. The U.S. House of Representatives last night was able to send the stopgap bill for the government funding and pass it to President Biden's desk to avert the government shutdown. Now, this did not have Senator Joe Manchin's bill in there with permitting reform for the oil and gas industry and also for clean energy industry. Basically, something that kind of both sides wanted, Republicans and Democrats, but again, nobody could really agree on it. So the permitting reform was thrown out. Even though Republicans say they want to come back with their own permitting reform bill after this and then want to get Democrats to vote for it, when they largely had the opportunity right here and now to get the permitting bill reform on the block and passed right here. They just wanted to change the language of it. We'll have to see if that'll pass here, whether or not that'll be before or after the midterms, because this was really the golden opportunity to get that done. And here's what happened. The House on Friday passed a short-term funding bill to keep the government running only for about a month and a half, narrowly avoiding a shutdown just hours until the midnight deadline. Imagine that. It's just so poetically like Congress, right? The Democratic-led House voted 230 to 201, largely along party lines. Overwhelmingly amount of Republicans voted no to the government shutdown bill, which again, the permitting reform was out of there. So I'm surprised that we had so many no votes there. To advance legislation as Republican leadership urged their members to reject the bill over disagreements about timing and policy areas like border funds. Remember, this is only a short-term funding bill to keep the government from shutting down for, actually, it's about 2.5 months. It goes until mid-December. Mid-December. It's December 16th. And now it goes to the president's desk for signing. The measure will allow the government to remain funded at current levels through December 16th, October, November, and December, halfway through December. The legislation includes more than $12 billion in security and finance for Ukraine to defend itself from Russia, as well as funding for disaster relief, which is a big thing now in Florida. Let me know your thoughts on this, as Ukraine may be defending themselves from a nuclear bomb, and Florida is kind of defending themselves from a kind of equivalent nuclear bomb of Hurricane Ian right now. Here is what Senator Joe Manchin has to say after his permitting bill to basically just shorten down the time the states would have to approve permitting for the oil and gas and other industries as well, down to a 1 to 3 year time frame instead of being able to take up to 10 years of permitting time. Here's what he has to say.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says the Republicans have a 50-50 shot of regaining control of the Senate in the midterms, but that it's going to be really, really close either way. That's likely going to make Senator Joe Manchin nervous, since this is what the West Virginia Democrat told NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor.
Can I get your reflections on this Congress? You've been at the center of so many things. You've gotten a lot of bipartisan things done.
I'm praying to God it's not a 50-50 again.
I'm sorry?
I'm just praying it's not a 50-50. I like for Democrats to be 51-49, but whatever happens, I kind of hope it's not a 50-50.
So you don't have to be at the center of everything again.
And Sahil joins us now. Tell us more about your conversation with the senator.
Well, Mika, it's not every day you see a politician essentially praying that he has less power in the foreseeable future, but that is what Senator Joe Manchin did in that interview that I had with him. And the reason for this is not difficult to see. He said he wants Democrats to hold on. He'd like it to be 51-49, and the reason, to read between the lines is quite simple. He has not enjoyed being the decisive vote in this entire Congress. He's been at the center of the storm, the linchpin of the Democrats' 50-50 Senate majority, all while representing a state that President Biden lost by 39 points. West Virginia is deep red, and Joe Manchin has been put in a position over and over and over again where he has to choose between the leanings of his state, his Republican-leaning constituents, and his party, the Democratic Party. He's made a lot of people angry on both sides of the aisle every step of the way, and he does not want to do that anymore. There are politicians who wouldn't be so fazed by this, but Manchin is someone who likes to make the left and the right happy, and he has simply not had the luxury of doing that over the last 2 years on many of these very contentious issues. So he'd like not to be the decisive vote next year, although certainly he would like to keep his chairmanship of the Energy Committee, and that requires Democrats holding on.
Sahil, do you get the sense from Senator Manchin that Democrats, if they come around to him at all on some of his energy proposals, that he might have been more flexible on other proposals?
Well, they've tried on some occasions to do just that. I mean, the Inflation Reduction Act, if you think of it, the reason they were able to get it through is that they made a commitment to Joe Manchin that they would move forward with a permitting reform package that includes an overhaul of energy and infrastructure projects, how they get approved. And that was Chuck Schumer's promise. He did agree to put it in the government funding bill, and he was ready to move forward with it until Manchin, recognizing that there wasn't enough Republican support, backed down from it. So Democrats have tried to move in Manchin's direction on energy on that front. And the simple fact is the energy and climate provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act were negotiated entirely around Joe Manchin's demands. They had 49 votes and a House majority to go much, much further. So there's no doubt they have moved in his direction, and they've had to.
Now, Mitch McConnell's being a little bit optimistic on the Senate. The mathematical odds are not actually 50-50 because not everybody is up for re-election in the Senate. There's actually more Republicans up for re-election than Democrats. So if you just kind of think about it, those Republicans need to hold their seats, and then they need to take over some Democratic seats. And then the Republicans have to actually win 51 seats to take over the control of the Senate. Okay. Democrats have to actually only control 50 seats instead of 51 seats to control the Senate. So right now the Senate is a 50-50 tie, but Democrats control the Senate because in a 50-50 tie, the tiebreaker goes to the Vice President of the United States, who right now is a Democrat, Biden and Kamala Harris. So the Democrats control the tiebreaker. So the Republicans do not have that advantage. So the Republicans have to actually win 51 seats. So they're at a double disadvantage for the Senate. They have to retain more seats, all the Republican seats that are up for re-election. And there's less Democratic seats up for re-election this time around. Because remember that every 2 years when there's elections, the senators serve 6-year terms, so they kind of go in rotations. Okay, Mitch McConnell was up for a re-election last time, and now he's re-elected for 6 years. Okay, Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema will be up for re-election next time around in 2 more years. Okay, so you can let me know your thoughts on this. Now, in the House of Representatives, every single person's up for re-election. Like Nancy Pelosi, she goes up for re-election every 2 years. And every 2 years, she wins by a landslide. Mitch McConnell kind of won by a landslide as well, but now he's set for 6 years. And he'll be, I don't know, like near 90 years old if he runs again. God bless him. But yeah, so we'll see here. When we get closer, we'll keep an eye on that. Hurricane Ian could cripple Florida's home insurance industry and insurance companies, and really now a lot of these surrounding states as well that are going to have home damage, car damage as well. So this is something to be very aware of for if you're in the area, friends or family in the area, and this is something to be very concerned of. There was at least over 10 insurance companies from a previous hurricane, that 10 insurance companies went out of business and went bankrupt last time around. And this is, some people are saying, damage-wise, this could be the worst hurricane in the country's history. I mean, we've seen the footage here, right? Hurricane Ian could cripple Florida's already fragile homeowners insurance market. Experts say that a major storm like Ian could push some of those insurance companies into insolvency, and probably will, making it harder for people to collect on those claims. Since January of 2020, at least a dozen insurance companies in the state have already gone out of business, including 6 this year alone. And that was without a major hurricane like this one. Nearly 30 others are on the Florida Office of Insurance Regulations watch list because of financial instability. Quote, Hurricane Ian will test the financial preparedness of some insurers to cover losses to their portfolios. In particular, smaller Florida carriers with high exposure concentrations in impacted areas, says Jeff Waters, an analyst at Moody's. Waters said Florida is a peak catastrophe zone for reinsurers, and those with exposures will likely incur meaningful losses. One early estimate pegs the potential reconstruction costs already at $258 billion. Industry analysts say years of rampant and frivolous litigation and scams have brought Florida's home insurance market to its knees, and many large insurers like Allstate and State Farm have been reducing their exposure to the state in the past decade. Yeah, this is potentially going to be, there's almost for sure going to be companies that go under. So make your claims very quickly. Just tell your friends and family as well. Also, Governor Ron DeSantis is coming under some scrutiny here because of some previous voting he did to prevent hurricane victims of disaster relief. Take a listen.
I mean, as you say, Tucker, we live in a very politicized time. But, you know, when people are fighting for their lives, when their whole livelihood is at stake, when they've lost everything, if you can't put politics aside for that, then you're just not going to be able to. So I'll work with anybody who wants to help the people of Southwest Florida and throughout our state.
That's Florida Governor Ron DeSantis this week on the topic of putting politics aside during a crisis. Lives matter. For people in the Northeast, though, it's hard to forget something the New York Times reports today. Quote, as a freshman congressman in 2013, Ron DeSantis was unambiguous. A federal bailout for the New York region after Hurricane Sandy was an irresponsible boondoggle, a symbol of the put it on the credit card mentality he had come to Washington to oppose. Quote, I sympathize with the victims, but his answer was no. So here we are in 2022. As you heard, Ron DeSantis has changed his tune.
Yeah, so I would love to know your thoughts on this because this is one of the major headlines across the country here today. As Florida suffers, millions of people are literally traumatized, have lost their homes, severe damage. People have died from this hurricane. The hypocrisy of Governor Ron DeSantis is being called into question because he personally voted against hurricane relief for New York and New Jersey on one of his first votes when he came into office as a congressman here previously. And now he's calling on the federal government and the president, who he repeatedly insults over and over and over, to foot the entire bill for this. Let me know your thoughts on this, please. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, the man who first made his name in Congress by opposing hurricane relief, is now begging the federal government to come and bail out his state and wants them to pay the entire bill. In January 2013, the newly elected Congressman, Governor Ron DeSantis, who was then just a congressman, opposed a $9.7 billion flood insurance aid package to help the victims of Hurricane Sandy in New York and New Jersey. Although he expressed his sympathy for the victims, he said that, quote, allowing the program to increase its debt by another $9.7 billion with no plan to offset the spending with cuts elsewhere is not fiscally responsible. So basically, it was all about the money for Ron DeSantis. He didn't care about the people, he only cared about the money. This is his exact quote. I mean, it even says here, in short, DeSantis was sorry for what happened, but not enough to help. Fast forward 9.5 years, now Governor Ron DeSantis wants the federal government to pick up 100% of the costs for debris removal and emergency protective measures for 60 days following the hurricane. Yet when people bring up his hypocrisy, the governor's spokesman says, we have no time for politics or pettiness. Now, of course, the president has already declared Florida a natural disaster declaration and has already approved major federal aid to multiple different areas in and counties in Florida, if I could highlight this correctly, including Charlotte, Collier, DeSoto, Hardy, Hillsborough, Lee, Manatee, Pinellas, and Sarasota, Florida. Residents and business owners who sustain losses in designated areas can begin applying for assistance at www.disasterassistance.gov or by calling 1-800-621-FEMA, which is 3362, or by using the FEMA app. Make sure you're using these official government websites or phone numbers. Be aware there's going to be a lot of scams. Please be very careful you're on official government websites or phone numbers. This is directly from the whitehouse.gov website. Please be very careful. But this is the kind of thing here that you can let me know your thoughts here on this. And I don't know. It just kind of ticks me off a little bit. And by all means, I think that Floridians need all the help they can get. Don't forget that, and the White House and President Biden, they need to do all the help. Floridians don't deserve to have any backlash or anything like that. They need to send all the help they can. Give them all the help they can. In fact, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis needs to do more. He's sitting on $20 billion of state surplus that they haven't used. They have near $10 billion of stimulus money from the last stimulus package that he's used very, very little of. He's only used it to send out like some $1,000 checks to teachers and first responders that basically he spent like the interest on it because they're just sitting there in an account earning interest. And the amount he's sent out is very little. So it's basically untouched. So it's like 8 or 9 billion or somewhere. It's probably close to $10 billion. So between that, he's got $30 billion of money that he could use right now. Florida needs it. Will he use it? I don't know. You tell me. I've seen thousands of comments from Florida residents saying, we need help. So now more than ever, we'll see what the governor does. But now he wants the federal government and the taxpayers to pick up the bill for this. Now, mind you, it's not Florida's fault here, but when New York and New Jersey needed help, he voted no. He said, well, I know that those guys were in trouble, but we don't want to give them help. This is the problem with America. This is the problem with politics. This is the problem with the United States of America. We're supposed to be united. It's not supposed to be like, oh, we don't want to help those people. We don't want to help those guys in the other state. But when it comes time to helping yourself, or if the help's going to come to you, like when it comes to like the student loan forgiveness or the SNAP program or the stimulus checks or like a state's helping their residents, if that person's getting the help, then everybody's like, oh yeah, it's great. But if it's not for that person, then everybody's like, oh, it's a terrible program. This is the problem with the United States of America. We're supposed to come together for each other. We're supposed to be happy for our neighbors when our fellow neighbors get help. We're not supposed to be like, oh, no help for anybody else unless it's for us. Let's be more united. Let's be more together. Let's be the United States of America. Let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here with everything in our country on a daily basis. You can subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. You can click here to see new checks that are going out here with a deadline of October 17th. And here is my newest video on Social Security raises of up to $2,400. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.